Greetings dear Uzapor World viewers and welcome back to the review program. In this episode we're going to talk about sociology and analyze its impact on the economic development in Uzbekistan.
Shu jamiyatda a'zo sifatida kuzatib boraman.
As a citizen of this country, I am informed about the new social and legal reforms. For example, in recent years, the Constitution of the Republic of Uzbekistan has been updated. Additionally, the new law on youth public policy has been passed, marking a significant reform in how youth are integrated into society's public policy. Furthermore, in my opinion, the enhancement of platforms for citizens to voice their opinions during the law drafting processes will ensure fair state policy implementation in the country.
Yoshlarga 5 tashabbusdan xabarim bor.
5 initiative projects were implemented to provide young people with necessary professional knowledge. Additionally, recent presidential decisions have emphasized creating conditions for citizens in need of social protection. It's crucial for young people to effectively utilize this year's innovations. Furthermore, citizen opinions must be considered in law adoption processes, particularly regarding issues like law pensions and allowances for those in need of social protection and limited housing availability.
Now let's define sociology and its relevant terms.
Sociology is a study of society, social interactions, social relationships, and social institutions. It is a discipline within the social sciences that seeks to understand how human behavior is shaped by the social context in which individuals live. Sociology explores various aspects of society, including its structure, organization, and dynamics, as well as the patterns and processes that underlie social phenomena.
Key areas of study within sociology include social institutions, social interaction, social satisfaction and inequality, social change and development, and research methods and theory. Now, what is social capital?
Social capital is a concept within sociology that focuses on social relationships, networks, and norms that contribute to social cohesion and cooperation within a society or community. While it is studied primarily within the field of sociology, it can have broader implications for economic and political systems as well.
Sociology provides valuable insights into the complex and interconnected nature of human society, helping us to better understand the social forces that shape our lives and the world around us. It offers perspectives for addressing social problems, promoting social justice, and building more inclusive and equitable communities. Now, what role does it play in Uzbekistan? What impact does it bring to the economic development of the country? We have talked to sociologists who has reflected on that matter. Good evening, Professor Rossi. First of all, thank you. We're really happy to have you back in our studio.
I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Now, let's define what is sociology and why is it important to know?
Well, in a basic understanding, sociology is the study of human interaction, human development. The most important thing to understand is that sociology looks at how we relate to one another within a collectivity, within a collective whole. Hence the whole idea of sociology really being the study of how societies work, how they interact, and equally important, how they come to trust one another and how they come to make sense of their daily lives, working together within a community.
Mm-hmm. What role does sociology play in economic and political development of the country?
So within the studies of social science, probably the best way to answer this question is to provide what I would call a disciplinary bridge called social capital. And this is something that has been researched thoroughly within the subfields of both sociology as well as political science. There's also a little anthropology that comes into this. So when we relate sociology to the study of economy, we also have to talk about political economy, social economy. It's more than just simply about the exchanging of money, but it's also how just things simply work. It's about the allocation of resources, both tangible as well as intangible, but also the way in which societies value allocating certain things, what they feel is necessary to invest in, and what they feel is something to be avoided. So social capital, and I'm more qualified to talk about it within the field of political science, but it draws significantly from earlier fields within sociology and anthropology, is simply how societies make sense of their shared destinies and their shared needs and wants within a community.
How would you evaluate the level of social capital in Uzbekistan?
So this might be a little bit longer to explain because we're talking about a country that is truly developing within the last 6 to 7 years, emerging as it is onto the global market. The studies of social capital within political science oftentimes focus on established democracies, developed societies, usually within the Western world. And so there's this assumption that social capital equates into civil society. Now, civil society is oftentimes simply a way of explaining how ordinary people, citizens, mind you, are able to work together as a group to hold their elected officials accountable and also to show that society, the citizenry, are not only mobilized but empowered. Right? This is critically important here. But the assumption is that this works within established, long-established democratic societies with functioning institutions in which the public trusts these institutions to function properly. Now, that's not to say that this doesn't exist within Uzbekistan, but more recent studies of social capital, and more specifically, more expanded understandings of sociology, go beyond what we would call depending on formal institutions to make things work. There are a lot of informal institutions, a lot of informal networks that would be considered unconventional for academic sociology, for the more established democratic societies. But that's not to say that social capital in this sense does not exist in places like Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan or Russia or any other country. But what we need to look at here is the level of trust that people have in one another to make certain that some kind of transaction, whether it's a business transaction, a word-of-mouth transaction, simply the idea of knowing that if I'm going to engage in some kind of partnership, cooperation, relationship with you, whether it's starting a business or just simply buying a product, I need to know that you can be trusted, because if not, I'm not going to work with you again. So reputation is also very, very important within this wider, more of an anthropological point within social capital. So to answer your question then, how important is this for a country like Uzbekistan? It's very important. In fact, I would say that it doesn't matter whether a country is established within the structural democratic framework or not. Simply the idea of the ordinary person being able to get what they need, to trust that if they purchase something, the product is going to be good, or if they sell something, their reputation is going to be guaranteed, is critically important. This is also part of social capital, but within more informal networks. This idea of being able to know the right people, have the right connections, doesn't necessarily imply corruption, and it doesn't imply nepotism. It just simply is the idea that my word is and should be enough to trust you or to have you trust me in working in some kind of relationship. This is actually a good example of less structured social capital, but it's social capital nonetheless.
Living here in Uzbekistan, what kind of environment have you observed in that term?
Well, first of all, people are much more conscious about whether they are trusted or not, because in many cases, their word is the most important thing. If we know that you are somebody that their word of honor is to be trusted, you can take them at face value. The minute that they break their promise, the minute that there is any kind of lying or cheating or any deceit, their word is gone. So in this sense, this is a great example of how informal networks operate. And you see this on a daily basis within the markets, within the bazaars, Whether it is Chorsu or Yunusabad or any others. These are great examples of informal social networks, but this is quite possibly the most person-to-person type of interaction out there. And so this is a great example of how sort of nascent elements of social democracy works within societies, especially within Tashkent.
I see. I wanted to ask the question regarding the social activity of people in regards to policy making of a country. You work with students a lot. Are they aware of what is going on in the country? Do they follow news? Are they socially active? Do they contribute to the activities?
Yes, they are. And I think more so because I'm teaching students within international relations. So they tend to be a little bit more politically aware of things. But I do ask them at times, how active are they as voting citizens? Do they vote in the referendum? Do they vote in elections? A lot of them don't, right? A lot of them don't vote. And of course I ask them, why don't you vote? I mean, you're a citizen, you should vote. And a lot of the answers that I get is, well, we already know what the outcome is. We already know what the answer is going to be. So what's the point? And some would look at this and say that this is weak social capital, that this is a sense of distrust within formal political structures. I look at it and I see this more so as what I say to my students, data in the absence of data, in the sense that they don't vote because they feel like there's nothing to vote for. If they know that society is going to already be predetermined for them. And this is not to say that the decisions are good or bad, they just are. Then there is this sense of disengagement. And this is part of the sociological understanding of what social capital is. People are going to participate. People are going to invest their time, trust, and attention if they know that they can get something out of it. And it doesn't have to be a personal thing. It just simply is the idea that if they participate, will they feel like they are making some kind of contribution? If they don't, most people will simply withdraw. They won't protest. They won't necessarily oppose, but they just simply will realize that their own lives are more important, and they end up focusing on their own immediate day-to-day needs. More focused and democratically oriented approaches to social capital will look at this and say, this is bad social capital, this is bad civil society, this is weak social capital. I look at it and I say, it's not necessarily weak, as it is a natural and logical response to what students and younger people feel is a society that tells them they don't have to worry about anything, everything will be taken care of, but there's no need for them to participate. There's no need for them to invest their own input. So if they don't feel that's the case, then they don't.
Do students and overall youth play an important role in developing the social capital?
Yes, absolutely. In the general sense, absolutely. I mean, we talk all the time about how students are the next generation of leaders of a country. Students where I teach are incredibly bright. They know what's going on. They are some of the most, they're far more, let's say, world conscious about what's going on in the world than some of my American students, who can benefit from being on the other side of the planet and not have to worry about, immediate, causes, immediate consequences to what happens. But I know that they are very much enthusiastic. They love the country that they live in. They're so happy to know that so many people around the world are discovering Uzbekistan and knowing its history and knowing its people. I think that they feel that they want to do more. A lot of them are constantly asking, what can I do to either make the country that they live in better or to simply make the town or the city that they live in better. A lot of them come from outside of Tashkent, outside of Samarkand. And a lot of them would like to be able to go back to their smaller cities and make it better than have to think that they have to either move to Samarkand or more likely move to Tashkent just simply to live a better life. So a lot of them are very much proud of where they come from, and they want to do more. And this is where social capital comes in.
How do you envision the future of social capital in Uzbekistan?
Slow, but emerging. Social capital is not something, if we were to, let's say, put it within the confines of democratic social capital, democratic civil society. It's going to take some time, but this is natural. This is nothing unusual about a country like Uzbekistan, which is still growing. The country is a little more than 30 years old. And I always like to tell my students, whether I'm teaching abroad or in the United States, I say, where was the United States 30 years after it had achieved independence? It wasn't this big, flourishing, functioning democracy that we like to think that it is. It took the United States at least 100 to 150 years to get to where we could honestly call it a consolidated democracy. Now, that's not to say that Uzbekistan has to wait 100 to 150 years either, but it takes time. And within just the last 6 to 7 years, the amount of modernity and growth and affluence and exposure to new global trends has really just put the country on the fast track towards development. So I can't give a specific timetable here, but what I can say is that the younger generations, right, especially those that are going to international universities, they no longer are thinking about simply using their diploma as a means to move away and live someplace else. Some of them are, but a lot of them would like to stay here. And a lot of them would like to be able to use what they've learned to invest within their societies and help building up confidence among communities that trust within formal political institutions is not a bad thing and something that can and should be cultivated.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation with you.
Thank you for having me once again. I look forward to speaking with you again.
So here our analysis comes to an end. Thank you for watching this program and see you in the next episodes.